Your guinea pigs are casting a spell on you to make them this coffin bed for Halloween.
Here's how to make it. We need to know what shapes to cut out of our fabric, so I've made a free guide that you can find at kimspeakspiggy.com/DIYs. It's completely free, so print that out, cut the shapes out, and draw those on your fabric, and then we're going to cut those out. Mine aren't labeled, but on the pattern I included online, they actually are labeled, so you know where each of those blocks goes. Put the coffin back on your black fabric along with each of the rectangles around it where they go, and draw each of those shapes on your black fabric. This is going to be the back and sides of the coffin. And the lines that are inside of the blocks, you don't have to fully draw. I just drew little tiny lines as guides, but basically we're just going to use those guides to know where to fold it. Once you have all those drawn out, you're going to cut it out and leave some space outside of the lines. You'll need that space later because we're going to sew on the lines, so that's going to be how you're going to connect each of the side bits together. And now we also need to draw and cut out the front coffin shape. And leave even more space around the edge of this one, at least an inch around, and make it into little tabs like I'm showing here, because we're going to fold this over later and sew it underneath, so you want a good amount of space. And now for what's going to be inside the coffin, I wanted something somewhat stiff so that it would keep the coffin's shape, but I also wanted it to be absorbent because this is a bed for our guinea pigs, so I want it to absorb their pee properly. So I decided to use a moving blanket. It keeps its shape well, it's fairly stiff, but it also absorbs pee. But there are a couple other options. You could use like batting, you could use a mattress pad. Just make sure whatever it is, it's not waterproof, or that you're able to wick it so that it can then soak in the pee. And if you don't care that much about the sides of the coffin staying upright and stiff, then you can just use normal stuffing, filling, or even just a towel. It's up to you. I shaped it so that it covers the full back of the coffin and then goes halfway up each of the sides. So it stops in the middle of that center part that we marked out. Now pin each of these tabs together. Basically, you are going to put the sides of the sides together and sew along the line. So you want to pin it so that the two tabs are right next to each other. And then we're going to sew along each of those lines that are on the sides. Once you have all those tabs sewn together, it'll start to take shape and look like this. Flip it inside out. Now we put the moving blanket or whatever you're using on the inside. Make sure the lines on that are matching up with the lines that you drew on the coffin fabric, and pin it into place. When you're pinning it, it helps if you kind of fold the sides up to make sure that there's tension holding it in the right direction. So the fleece and the blanket are kind of pulling up sideways like they're going to need to be in the end. Otherwise, it might not keep its shape as well. Now we're going to put the front part of the coffin in, and the way that we're going to do that is by folding over the sides and then putting the front part of the coffin on top of that and then sewing it down to hold it all together. So start by pinning the sides of the front part of the coffin over just to line up the edges nicely. I know I kind of messed up filming this. It's sort of off frame. Bear with me. This is a pretty simple step. So once you've pinned the sides back on the coffin front, we then fold over the sides of the coffin that we already started sewing and pin those into place. Once you have those all pinned down, put the front of the coffin on the inside and put it in the right spot, kind of line it up and everything, and pin that down. Now keep in mind that this is going to go on top of the bottom part of the sides. So basically you're going to sew this all in one go. So it's very important that the edges of the sides are coming in past the edge of this front coffin part that you're putting down. In other words, they should be overlapping enough that you're then able to sew over both of them. And once you've pinned that all down, just double check, make sure everything looks good, make sure the shape looks right. And then you're going to sew right along the edge of that inside coffin part. So literally a couple millimeters from the actual edge with just a straight stitch. Something that really helped me with this project that I'm going to be doing probably with any guinea pig project in the future is using a walking foot, which is that big kind of thing you see attached to the sewing machine. It was so helpful. It stopped everything from getting stuck because with like the fleece and the moving blanket and all of that fabric, my sewing machine usually has a difficult time. So the walking foot totally fixed that, and I highly recommend it. It basically kind of pushes the fabric through, so it's like self-feeding it. And I mean, I'm still pushing it through too, but it helps so much. Usually things get stuck, I get nests, it's a whole thing. Once you've sewn around the whole entire edge of the inside of the coffin, then take all the pins out and you're done with the coffin part of the coffin. Now we make a pillow for the inside. I'm using red, but dark purple would also look great. Honestly, I might also make a dark purple one and just switch them out, which is a great hack for keeping your Heidies cleaner because they'll pee on the pillow, that'll have most of the pee, and then you could just swap out the pillow. So trace and cut out 2 of the coffin shapes, leaving room around the edge again, and pin the 2 sides together with the line on the outsides, and sew slightly outside the lines, leaving one side unsewn. I did the bottom. Once you've done that, remove all the pins and cut just outside where you sewed so that there's not a bunch of extra fabric. Then flip it inside out, push out the edges really well so they're as sharp as they can be, and pin down the sides again. We're now going to sew along the edge once again, and again leave the one side unsewn. This will make a cute little detail on the edge, but it'll also allow us to finish up the last edge really easily, because we had to leave one edge undone so that we could stuff it with stuffing and make it look like a pillow. But then I hate hand sewing to finish the edges, so this is a nice alternative to that. Once you've done that, we're now going to make a little cross detail on the inside, so you're just going to sketch that out first. But this side will remain visible, so make sure you use something that'll wash out in the washing machine. I'm specifically using a white pencil that's made for sewing for this exact purpose. And I used the pins to kind of measure an eyeball where I'm going to start and stop the stitches. So I'm literally just stitching a couple of lines. Basically 2 vertical lines, 2 horizontal lines about like a millimeter apart. That makes a cute little cross detail, but I also like it because having the stitching in the middle will prevent the pillow from getting too fluffy. It'll kind of help it keep its shape a little better. Now just stuff it. And then to do the final stitch with a sewing machine rather than by hand, what we're going to do is fold inside each of the 2 open edges and then pin them together like a little sandwich. That way you'll be able to sew this on the sewing machine and there won't be any frayed edges on the outside. They'll be sewn on the inside, and then it looks like all of the other edges do. So it still matches even though you technically did it a different way. So sew one final stitch along the bottom of that, just a straight stitch. Pull those pins out and you're done. Though you do need to wick your fabric in order to make sure the pea will go through it. So if you don't know how to do that, there's a video that explains it.
If you enjoyed this spooky tutorial, you'd probably also like making this Snuffle Pumpkin. It's a food puzzle toy to work out their bodies and brains. Click here to learn how to make it.